Good evening, and thanks for joining The Breakdown with me, Tony Waterman. Here are the big topics we'll explore tonight. Recreational marijuana is now legal in Canada, so where are the opportunities for Bermudian investors and the insurance sector? We will find out. From chocolates to gummies to hair products, a look at how popular cannabinoid products have been in Bermuda since they hit the shelves 10 months ago. And the most feathered out event in the Bermuda calendar, Carnival. But the man behind the event says it's not all fun and games. We are going to bring you that story in just a little bit, but first, Canada becomes only the second country in the world to legalize the recreational use of cannabis nationwide. Uruguay was the first. That happened in 2013, but they didn't actually start selling the product in pharmacies until last year. But Canada is going to be taking it one step further because it's going to allow folks to mail order their weed. Let's take a quick look at the numbers on this. So the initial projections is that the recreational marijuana market is going to be about $5 billion in the first year. When you add in medicinal marijuana, which was legalized in Canada back in 2001, it jumps up to $10 billion over the next couple of years. Tourism itself, a $2 billion market. Let's look at taxes. So on the tax front, the federal government is going to charge $1 per gram or 10%. Whichever is higher. It's going to keep a quarter of that money. The rest of it is going to be pushed out to the provinces. There's also going to be some local sales tax, so you can see where this generation in taxes is going to come from. They are going to limit how much people can buy and how much they can grow inside their homes. Now, there are two things which will not be legal, at least from the get-go. That's going to be your edibles, so sorry, no pot brownies, and also cannabis-infused drinks. And this is actually quite interesting because there are a lot of drink legacy companies which are already looking to get in to this market right here. So you have the likes of Constellation Brands. These are the folks behind Corona, Modelo. They have already invested billions of dollars to bring a THC-infused brew to the market. You have Molson Coors also looking to get in on this. Heineken-owned Lagunitas, they have already launched a cannabis-infused sparkling water. And Coca-Cola, doesn't get more classic than Coca-Cola, also looking to potentially take that cannabis plunge. And at least from a business standpoint, for very good reason. So over in the United States, $8 billion in marijuana sales between recreational and medicinal last year. That is expected to spike up to $24 billion by 2025. There was also this one very famous, often quoted study that says that if all 50 states within the U.S. were to legalize cannabis, then it would bring in by 2025 $132 billion in federal tax revenue and create 1 million jobs. But clearly that is not the case right now. When you look across the United States, it's really a smorgasbord when it comes to what's legal, where you can get it, and what the rules are around it. But you can see that we are trending in this direction, this legalization direction. So you had nationally as well, so not just in the United States, but globally as well as what I should be saying here, you had South Africa just last month legalizing adult use of cannabis. Even in places like Sri Lanka, where pot is still illegal, you can go into those herbal shops and still get it as part of alternative medicine. So we are trending in this general direction. All right, so we have the breakdown now. So where are the investment opportunities? And could this be the next big thing for the insurance industry? To help us answer those questions, I am joined on set right now by Nathan Kowalski. He is the CFO at Anchor Investment Management. And also joining us via Skype from Texas is Stephen Pate from Cozen O'Connor. He's an insurance law attorney and has worked with insurance companies on their cannabis strategies. He's also regent of the American College of Coverage Council. Thank you both for joining me this evening. Nathan, I want to start off with you because you are actually Canadian, and this ball has sort of been rolling for a long time now, since the 1970s. What does this mean culturally, social, economically, for Canada and for Canadians?
Yeah, you nailed a lot of the key points and numbers on there. Obviously, it's a new source of tax revenue. It's actually a nascent industry, and Canada now has first mover advantage here in North America, which is a huge market. And if it goes legal in the United States, it's just going to explode by about 10x. So the opportunity is there massively for these Canadian companies that have a foot in the door and are actually making some of these international alliances with some of the major distribution companies, as you mentioned. And it's really the snowball starting to pick up steam.
I mean, it's really interesting, Stephen, because when you look at Canada's southern neighbor, the United States, right? So it's legal in certain places, not in others, but that actually causes a bit of trouble when it comes for the insurance industry. Can you please explain that for us, what this problem is, this dynamic?
The problem is our federal system, whereas we have so many states now, most of them, where you can either buy it for medicinal uses or recreational purposes, we still have federal statutes on the books that outlaw it and regard it as a narcotic. During the Obama administration, we had what was called the Cole Memo that actually said that we weren't going to enforce those federal statutes. In January of this year, our new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, said he was going to change that. He was going to enforce the federal statutes. That caused a lot of consternation. Now, for various different reasons, Jeff Sessions is probably going to be fired after the midterm elections. And President Trump has been quoted telling Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado that he does not favor federal enforcement of marijuana legislation and marijuana statutes. What's ended up as happening is we're in a quandary. Probably no enforcement of federal statutes, but some people don't want to take the chance. Some insurance carriers, like the London market, they're in a wait and see position.
I guess the big problem here for the insurance companies there, Stephen, is that they think they're going to invest this money and take on this risk, and potentially there's going to be fallout because it's not at the federal level. But I mean, something quite interesting as well, the other area, Nathan, where we're having a lot of trouble, or the cannabis industry is having a lot of problems, is when it comes to financing. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to this federal law in the United States.
Yeah, banking is very difficult because wiring it across state borders is basically illegal. And so it makes banking industry very difficult. It's a cash business essentially. So you have a lot of investment in safes and securities. So it's creating some interesting problems for some of these guys that are just starting out. But it's, there's opportunities there as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about those opportunities because even though with kind of two hands tied behind their back, the industry is growing exponentially in the United States. And you have, I want to bring up the chart right now, but you have this company, Tilray. This is a Canadian company that specializes in premium medicinal marijuana. Right. It IPO'd. It was the first cannabis company to list on a major U.S. exchange. It listed at $17 back in July. It is now $150, $160 stock.
Yeah.
Good investment or too volatile?
Well, I can't speak specifically on Tilray for compliance reasons, but I would just kind of tread lightly in this area. You got to remember, there's been a huge run in a lot of these stocks, like 100, 1,000% for some of these companies that have no earnings whatsoever. They're trading at sales multiples of high double digits. And some of them don't even have like business plans that are essentially legitimate or tested. So if you're going to get into this space, realize there's 130 some publicly listed Canadian companies alone, and a lot of these will not make it. I suspect within a few years we're going to come down to a handful of survivors, and they'll be the good investments. So look for the low-cost guys. Look for the guys that have established distribution chains with some major distributors, and maybe guys that have more specialty products where they have a niche and IP that sets them apart from just the commoditized product.
Yeah, the intellectual property there, very important. Stephen, I mean, this seems like such a perfect fit for the insurance industry because there's already, they already write crop insurance and business insurance, but they're just not able to at this point because of those federal laws. I mean, who's covering these companies at this point?
Well, that is a problem. The people that are covering it are some startup companies and what's called surplus and excise line carriers. Some of these carriers are not, to put it bluntly, some of the most reliable carriers in the world. Some of them, God bless them, are young startups who probably don't have all the capital that they need. It would be a great benefit to the people involved in the industry if more admitted carriers got involved, and that's exactly what many insurance commissioners believe. You always have a problem with surplus and excess compliance carriers in that they are not subject to all the state regulations and the state capital requirements. That's a problem. That's why we need to get this federal enforcement issue resolved.
I mean, what sort of risk is there? I mean, the insurance industry right now, Stephen, is looking for ways to diversify because you have some of the traditional lines which just aren't doing as well because of a lot of reasons. Competition, soft pricing, you have a lot of natural disasters that they have to pick up on. How much of a revenue stream could this be for the insurance industry?
I do a lot of London work, and I'll tell you this, talking to my London clients, they see a huge premium stream coming from this kind of work. And it is something For example, crop insurance. Marijuana crop insurance premiums could be tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
The security issues, because you're going to have theft issues. You're going to have tremendous premiums from these regular line type of forms that they use that are going to be adapted for cannabis use. I don't have numbers for you, but I'm going to tell you that they view it as a huge premium stream.
Those are pretty strong words there, Nathan. When you look at what some of the states in the United States and some other countries which have legalized, so Uruguay, of course, is the only one that's legalized the recreational use, but medicinal use has been kind of widely adopted in a lot of places. How is this money being used? Is it paying down debts? It's going into school system? How exactly is the money being used?
Well, Colorado is probably one of the ones that's talked about a lot, and a lot of that was supposed to go into the school system. There's been some controversy over exactly what's happening with that. But I think the latest figures I saw is they raised about $250 million, which it's not a small chunk of change. I mean, that's good money. So it's helping to solve the pension deficits a lot of these states are having. They're underfunded fiscally in a lot of ways. So this is a great new source of revenue, and you're starting to see a little bit of green envy or jealousy from the other states that aren't doing it, because they're realizing that the states that are doing it are getting a huge source of tax revenue. So I think you're starting to see a little bit of push to legalize statewide, at least all over the U.S. And we should see that in the upcoming.
Those border states probably are a bit jealous. Yeah. But have there been negative knock-on effects? I mean, it can't be all roses, right?
Well, the side effects are obviously the health and social issues. You're going to hear a lot about that. Mm-hmm. Some surveys are suggesting that Canadians are going to start smoking it on day one, before work even. So there has been some calls for reduced productivity, issues with abuse. But I mean, it's hard to say yet, but we'll see how it all falls out in Canada.
All right, thank you so much, Nathan from Anchor Investment Management, and also Stephen Pate joining us from Houston, Texas. It is time now for a quick break, but when we get back, cannabinoid they hit the shelves in Bermuda 10 months ago. So what's been the most popular? I'm going to give you a hint. It's not the chocolates. That story and more next.
New Toyota Rush, Bermuda's biggest SUV with 7 seats. There's always plenty of room. Available at Bermuda Motors.
From happy beginnings and life choices that we make along the way,
Colonial protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
Family protection and long-term financial plans.
Business insurance and generous employee benefits.
For happy beginnings to happy ever after, visit CGIGroup.com.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to the Breakdown. Well, just yesterday, Canada became the second country in the world to legalize the recreational use of marijuana, second only to Uruguay. As you know, I am sure, cannabis is still illegal in Bermuda, although the government decriminalized small amounts of weed last year. Also last year, there was a change to the Pharmacy and Poisons Order, which opened the door to the importation and distribution of cannabinoid products. Those are products which contain less than 1% THC, the chemical that gets people high. Those products can only be bought at pharmacies, and the Phoenix stores started selling them in January of this year. We went to find out how popular they've been.
Since it started, the orders we're placing now on every couple month basis, we've had to probably multiply the orders by 5 or 6 times per order compared to what we were originally bringing in. And we thought we originally bring in might even be too much. So our most common and one that we recommend to start off is the tinctures, which are the drops you put under your tongue let them dissolve a bit and swallow them. We also have, for localized pain, we have some roll-on liquids, some rub-in creams. And then in terms of other oral dosage forms, we have capsules, tablets, we have gummies. We even have chocolates with CBD in it. We have paste. You see the chocolates with a little bit of caffeine and CBD. So in terms of our best sellers, it would be the different strengths of tinctures or liquids. And again, it all depends on the patient, what strength they want to start with, and then how much they end up needing, because it's quite individualized. CBD or cannabis oil, right there, comes from a stock of the hemp plant. The actual amount of CBD, 30 milligrams there on that one. Less than 1% of that, which is in the products we're allowed to bring in and which we sell, is not going to get you high or cause those side effects. But the beneficial part of the plant is that CBD for medicinal purposes. So many products have a little bit of THC in it, but not enough to trigger those side effects. See somebody that is on chronic pain medication, especially the opioid painkillers, and if it enables them to even lower the dose and use it as an adjunct therapy, then that's very important. That's making a huge difference. The other side we've seen, some elderly patients who maybe are taking anti-inflammatories like Advil every single day, which isn't the best for their gut, etc. So if they're able to use some CBD instead of that, that offers another avenue.
Well, cannabinoid products are the closest thing to medicinal marijuana in Bermuda, and really, it's not even that close. Yes, it is true that certain people on island have a license to use medical cannabis, but as Dr. Kaiwan Brown explains, it's very hard to actually get their hands on the stuff.
It's definitely not legal. The minister, in his right, can, according to the Act, can authorize patients who have been deemed necessary by their medical practitioner to obtain a license for medicinal marijuana. And that's where it stands at this current state.
How many patients do you have that have certificates, have the authorization from the minister to use medicinal marijuana?
There's only one at this point. There's others that I've recently applied for and they was denied because of this whole importation issue that I've brought up with the ministry. With our landmark patient, the patient with the chronic intractable seizures, who's tried everything, been everywhere, seen all sorts of specialists and tried all sorts of medication, continues to have 5 to 7 seizures per day. And the only thing that helps her is medicinal marijuana.
But there's a catch here because you can't actually obtain the medicinal marijuana on island, can you?
No, you can't. Well, I can't legally import it because currently Bermuda has signed a treaty. I think it dates back to the 1900s of times with the International Narcotics Board, which says that they regulate narcotics being controlled or being exported around the world. Bermuda has its self-imposed annual limit of 1 gram per year. And so because my patients are going to need 50 to 100 grams for the year, we're unable to import anything at this point.
Is there any conversations taking place to try to amend that?
Oh, I've had lots of conversations, lots of meetings, lots of emails, lots of advocates also.
But is there an appetite from the government to actually go in that direction?
I believe there's an appetite, but I don't think there's a willingness and an urgency of now. I think people believe that or they don't understand because they're not clinicians. They're not seeing the patients struggle. They're not seeing the patients who are having seizures, who have lost their jobs, patients who have intractable pain, who are contemplating suicide because they've tried all the opioids, everything, all sorts of pain management medications, and it's just not working for them. So I don't think the government understands the need for now and the urgency of now and that patients' lives are at stake.
You talked a little bit about patients then going and using opioids. Do you think that there is a transition between opioids and medicinal marijuana?
Patients would like to transition from opioids to medical marijuana. And opioids derived from the narcotic heroin create a whole lot of side effects that the patients don't necessarily want. And not only the side effects, is also highly addictive. And this is why you have the opioid crisis around the world, because patients are addicted to these medications because there's really no other options. And not only from addiction, there's also those patients who succumb to this due to respiratory suppression, and that you would never find from medicinal marijuana or marijuana, period.
Do you think that it would impact the high cost of healthcare if there was a transition from perhaps opioids or other narcotics to medicinal marijuana?
I don't think it's going to make a big difference in reference to the overall cost of healthcare, but you're definitely going to see that the use of opioids go down considerably if medical marijuana was available, as well as the complications therefrom ER visits, people overdosing, people ending up on respirators secondary to respiratory depression by the medication and ending up in the ICU. I don't know if those numbers are extremely high in Bermuda. I know they are around the world, but definitely there'd be a huge benefit for patients to segue from opioids to medicinal marijuana for chronic pain.
And, critics would say that medicinal marijuana is sort of one step closer to the legalization of recreational use of marijuana, that some would still say that it's a gateway drug, or that doctors would hand out these medical certificates willy-nilly to just about anybody that came knocking at their door. I mean, how do you envision it being regulated if it were to come into play?
Well, I think regulations are going to be key in this regard, but, when we understand the myth of medical marijuana has been so construed over time, patients will never overdose. They will never die from medical marijuana. They will die from aspirin. They will die from alcohol. They will die or develop lung cancers from cigarette smoking. None of that they will develop from medical marijuana. So the whole myth and hype around it is totally untrue and is unfounded. And this is why many countries around the world have gone forward to legalize it completely for recreation as well as medicinal use.
Is it your belief that Bermuda will legalize medicinal marijuana, and how quickly do you think it would happen?
I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, because Bermuda tends to move very, very slowly in all regards. But I believe it will happen.
Dr. Kaiwan Brown there from North Shore Medical Center giving us his thoughts on medical marijuana. Gary Foster Skelton went to find out how the public feels in this week's edition of Your Take.
What do you think the pros and cons are of the legalization of cannabis?
Well, I know that there are definitely medicinal purposes.
I mean, I think it's good for medical reasons.
Personally, I think that alcohol presents a lot more dangers to our culture and our society than cannabis does. Legislating the psychotropic marijuana, I totally agree with small amounts being legalized.
It'll take dealers off the streets if they can buy it from somewhere that's legally operated.
We have to be mindful of the young folks and the school kids that can get access to this.
Pros would be there wouldn't be so many people in jail. The cons would be more people out of their minds.
I'd rather not see that legalized in Bermuda.
It could cause more accidents and stuff if it was not treated like alcohol is.
Especially for persons like myself who have MS, medicinal marijuana actually can assist in dealing with the symptoms of MS.
Me, myself, I started having seizures 5 years ago. Went to the doctors. I had so much tests. And then I started smoking marijuana. And they stopped.
That Colorado model, it looks like it's a boon economy.
In the States and Canada, it's been doing well for the government and stuff like that. So even if it would be for us, why not? It'll be a great change.
If Bermuda could turn itself into a small canna tourism, I think it would be a positive for the island, especially when they're trying to figure out new streams of revenue to generate.
It might increase crime rate if people are trying to get money to buy it.
That's a factor in crime now, is people stealing to purchase drugs. Even though it would be legal, you could see that still happening, that people would be...
Because since it's legal, that means they're going to want it. Well, I think they should want it.
Not going to hide it as much.
Yeah.
All right, we got to head off for a quick break, but when we get back, Carnival, the yearly event, brings out thousands of participants, but the man behind the event says it's still not profitable. So, what's next? We'll tell you after the break.
Win a trip or two to the 2019 Trinidad Carnival. When you purchase a car from Bermuda Motors, your name will be entered into a draw for a chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip for two, including flights, accommodation, and tickets to the Trinidad Carnival. Visit Bermuda Motors on Church Street or bermudamotors.bm.
Ever wondered what smart health insurance feels like?
Colonial's 24/7 worldwide health insurance does most of the thinking for you.
1,500 CGI health claims are settled daily.
60% of claims settled automatically.
You can access your health plan almost anywhere, anytime.
And have smart wellness with online data tracking.
And more provider choices for you and the people who matter most.
Premier Health is smart health insurance, and it feels good.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Well, once a year, it's rather fashionable to dress up in a bikini, don a feather backpack, and shake it like no one is watching, all while walking down the street with 10,000 of your closest friends, of course. We're talking Carnival. It's about freedom of expression. But in this week's Bright Ideas segment, we get a reality check on the challenges of being an entrepreneur. It's arguably the most colorful, the most bejeweled, and certainly the most feathered out event on the Bermuda calendar. The yearly event attracts thousands, including hundreds of visitors from as far afield as China. In 2017, nearly 700 tourists came for the event. When the music stops, Jason Sugdio's work is just beginning. As the president of Bermuda Heroes Weekend, which organizes Carnival, he's already planning next year's event.
Next year in 2019, that's our 5-year anniversary. So you would have 3 bands and they would be staggered probably about 15 minutes apart.
Carnival, the music, the outfits, the history of emancipation. It's all part of Jason's soul. He's been to more than 20 carnivals all over the world. Seeing how tradition fused with local culture, he wanted to bring the concept home.
That question came up a lot. Hi, I'm from Bermuda. Oh, when's your carnival? And I would say, well, we don't really have one. We have Cup Match. It's a fun time of year, but we don't have a carnival.
The event has been popular since its 2015 inception, but Jason says there's been a lot of challenges. For one, Bermuda laws didn't accommodate late-night events, and a Juve starts at 3 a.m. That's been fixed, but there's the ever-present problem of funding.
When people see Carnival in Bermuda and they see 10, 15,000 people out and enjoying the carnival and enjoying the space, it can easily look like there's a lot of money there. But when you look at the facts, you can come out and watch Carnival, participate in Carnival in the day, and really not spend a dime. So yeah, funding is definitely a continual issue that we struggle with.
Have you been able to make money from it at all?
No, BHW hasn't made any money as yet.
Jason says he sees avenues for growth, like tapping into the cruise ship market. In the meantime, the government has stepped in to help, announcing a $125,000 sponsorship to make the venture more sustainable. The Bermuda Tourism Authority has also contributed $100,000. I mean, you're not willing to stop the music quite yet, though.
No, no, we definitely want to continue on. Yeah, definitely keep going. That's the plan for now.
As many entrepreneurs know, challenges often bring opportunity. Until then, the beat and the party go on. Well, it's not always easy being an entrepreneur there, but it sure looks like a heck of a lot of fun. That's going to do it for tonight's breakdown. Thank you very much for joining me. If you missed part of the show, it does rebroadcast on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. You can also find it on our Bermuda Broadcasting YouTube page. I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email. My address always right here. And you can always find me on Twitter for your latest news updates. My handle is Tony Waterman _. Coming up next week, we're talking elder care. The population, it is getting older and fewer babies are being born, which is a double whammy for the economy. We're going to take a look at what that will mean for healthcare costs, pensions, and find innovative ways to tackle the issue. I hope that you will join me for that. And until then, take care.